3 years ago, hiding my identity as the heir to a fortune, I met the love of my life, Evelyn Shaw. After we got married, Evelyn, whose ambitions soared higher than the Seattle skyline, wasn't content with a life of domestic simplicity. She decided to start her own company, not wanting to burden her with the pressure of my family's name. I kept my secret and simply helped her from the shadows. Today, 3 years later, my wife Evelyn finally achieved her dream, becoming the city's youngest self-made female CEO. It was a day for celebration, a milestone. I had prepared a feast, a spread of her favorite dishes, ready to finally tell her the truth tonight, on this most important of days. But what I got instead was a cold, crisp divorce agreement. I was sitting on the sofa, beaming with pride, watching the evening business report. On the screen was a breathtakingly beautiful woman, her smile as bright as the camera flashes. That was my wife, Evelyn. Just today, her company's valuation had surpassed $20 million, making her the youngest CEO in the city with a net worth in the 8 figures. Thank you all for the well wishes. Evelyn's sweet voice filled the room from the TV. I couldn't have achieved this success through my efforts alone. I have to thank all the founding members of my team. Her voice was steady, confident. If it weren't for their unwavering support, the Evelyn Shaw you see today wouldn't exist. She paused, a thoughtful look on her face. And I want to give a special thanks to one person who has been absolutely crucial in my life. Hearing this, a jolt of anticipation shot through me. My hands clenched into fists, my heart pounding as I waited for her to say my name. My best friend, and now my executive assistant, Megan. The smile on my face froze solid. A sharp, stinging pain lanced through my chest. But then, I let out a self-deprecating laugh. Of course, in all the time I'd known Evelyn, I had never once told her who I really was. The truth is, I'm the sole heir to the White family, Seattle's only true dynasty. The reason Evelyn's company had grown so meteorically in 3 years was because I had been orchestrating everything from behind the scenes. So, it wasn't really a surprise that she didn't thank me. After all, she didn't know a thing. I didn't want her to feel the chasm between our backgrounds. I knew her. She was a proud, fiercely independent woman. Otherwise, she wouldn't have poured her heart and soul into a startup instead of settling into a comfortable married life. But that was all about to change. Today was a day to celebrate. I was going to tell her everything. From this day forward, even as the heir to the White family fortune, she, Evelyn Shaw, would be my equal. She would officially take her place as the matriarch of the next generation of the White family. I couldn't help but grin, imagining the look of joy on her face when she found out. I switched off the TV. Just like I had every day for the past 3 years, I tied on my apron and went back into the kitchen. As dusk settled over the city, I heard the sound of a key in the lock. My heart swelled with joy as I walked out of the kitchen, carrying a platter of the braised short ribs she loved so much. But it wasn't just Evelyn who walked through the door. With her was the best friend she had just thanked so profusely on television, Megan. And the look on Evelyn's face was anything but celebratory. Megan, in particular, shot me a look of pure contempt. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. "Megan's here, too?" I asked, my voice betraying my unease. Megan sneered, her tone dripping with disdain. "If I didn't come, how else would we get your useless ass out of here?" Her words hit me like a physical blow. The heavy platter of short ribs nearly slipped from my grasp. I quickly set it down on the dining table, wiping my trembling hands on my apron as I took 2 steps forward. "What the hell is that supposed to mean?" I demanded, looking straight at Megan. But my eyes kept darting back to Evelyn, searching her face for some kind of explanation, any kind of reaction. What I saw there made my blood run cold. Evelyn, my wife of 3 years, the woman I had shared my life with, showed no reaction at all to Megan's cruel words. Seeing Evelyn's silence, Megan grew bolder. She shoved me back a step, jabbing a finger toward my face. "Stay away from our Evelyn," she shrieked. "Take a good look at yourself. You think you're still a man? Our Evelyn is the youngest CEO in the city now. And you're nothing but a freeloader, a kept man. In the 3 years you've been married, what have you ever done for her? Nothing. Now that she's finally made it, there's no way she's keeping a stain like you around." Megan's words were like shards of glass in my ears. I felt a piercing pain, as if a needle was being driven into my heart. A freeloader? A kept man? How did she think her company landed its first major client? Wasn't that because I had one of my family's subsidiaries extend an offer? That landmark contract that put her on the map. Wasn't my name signed on the other end of it, as the silent benefactor? And even if none of that were true, what about the vows she made to me 3 years ago? For better or for worse, in sickness and in health. What did any of that mean now? It was Evelyn who had asked me to be a stay-at-home husband, who said all she needed was for me to take care of her. And now I was just a useless freeloader. I looked at Evelyn, my voice shaking. Evelyn, today was supposed to be a celebration. What's she talking about? I desperately hoped she would defend me, say something, anything, but the expression on her face was that of a stranger. Her voice, when it came, was nothing like the warm, vibrant tone from the TV interview. It was glacial. Cole, Megan's right. You're not good enough for me anymore. Her heartless words were a punch to the gut, knocking the air from my lungs. I stumbled backward and collapsed onto the living room sofa. Evelyn and Megan seemed not to notice my reaction. They walked in and sat on the armchairs opposite me, as if this were a boardroom. Evelyn crossed her legs, her posture radiating the same cool, detached authority she used at the office. She didn't even spare me a glance. Megan, now acting as Evelyn's official spokesperson, continued her assault. There's no need to be so dramatic, Cole, she said, her voice laced with contempt. Honestly, I was against this marriage from the start. Since we're at this point, I might as well tell you the truth. The moment Evelyn decided to start her company, she was already planning to divorce you. It was just a matter of timing. Now, you should have enough self-awareness to see how things are, right? Already planning to divorce me. My heart felt like it had shattered into a million pieces. The cliché I'd only ever seen in movies, the first thing she did when she made it to the top was kick away the ladder, was actually happening to me. I couldn't stop myself from crying out to Evelyn, my voice raw with pain. So all of it, marrying me, telling me you'd love me for the rest of your life. It was all a lie, wasn't it? My outburst seemed to annoy her. She frowned, a flicker of irritation crossing her features before she spoke, her voice flat. If that's what you want to believe, there's nothing I can do. I couldn't believe those words came from her mouth. As if twisting the knife wasn't enough, Megan leaned in, looking down at me with a cruel smirk. Love you? Don't be naive, Cole. I'm her best friend. I know her better than you ever did. She was only with you to get her parents off her back about getting married. She delivered the final, devastating blow. Do you remember how you two were trying for a baby right after you got married? 3 years and nothing happened. Ever wonder why? It's not because there's something wrong with you or with her. It's because Evelyn has been on birth control pills every single day. She was never going to have a child with a pathetic freeloader like you. What? Megan's words brought my entire world crashing down. I remembered all those nights, Evelyn nestled against me, her head on my shoulder as we dreamed about our future, about a house full of kids. She'd even said we'd have two. The first would take my last name, the second would take hers. It was all a lie. Clinging to one last shred of hope, I clenched my jaw so hard it ached, fighting to keep the tears from spilling from my eyes. I forced myself to look at Evelyn. Is what she's saying? Is it true? Evelyn didn't even lift her head to look at me. She didn't answer my question directly. Instead, she reached into her purse, pulled out a sleek, black bank card, and slowly placed it on the coffee table between us. Her voice was as cold and hard as steel. There's $1 million on this card. Consider it your severance pay for playing the part of my husband for the last 3 years. Playing a part? My husband. Those words were a dagger twisting in my heart. She hadn't answered my question, but her frigid response confirmed everything Megan had said was true. The verbal blade didn't just pierce my body. It killed the fiery, devoted heart that had beaten only for her. Just moments ago, I was fantasizing about telling her my real identity, telling her that everything she had, she owed to me. I thought maybe, just maybe it could win her back. But now I saw everything clearly. Sure, I could probably get her back. If I revealed who I was, not just her, but Megan too would be on her knees, begging for my forgiveness. But what would be the point? I had hidden my identity to find a genuine love, a love free from the influence of my family's wealth. But now, even the purest love had been corrupted. I closed my eyes. When I opened them again, the woman in front of me, Evelyn, and her friend Megan, were nothing but strangers. Perhaps sensing the shift in my demeanor, Evelyn, who hadn't deigned to look at me, finally raised her head. Her gaze met mine, and I saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes. Maybe she was shocked at how quickly I had composed myself. But what did it matter to me anymore? I turned my head and looked at Megan. Where's the divorce agreement? My question seemed to startle her. She was likely expecting tears, begging, a messy scene, not this calm acceptance. But after a brief pause, she quickly retrieved a thick folder from her bag, placed it in front of me, and even thoughtfully uncapped a pen. In 3 years, she had never been so helpful. I didn't bother to read a single word of the agreement. I just signed my name on the dotted line. As I did, I saw both Megan and Evelyn visibly relax. So, Evelyn had been worried I'd make a scene? How pathetic. With my signature on the page, Megan's expression shifted to one of condescending pity. It's good you were so sensible about this. I'm surprised you didn't put up a fight. I guess you did really love her, after all. She paused. Too bad you're just a kept man. I must have been naive to think a single kind word could come from her mouth. Our Evelyn, she continued, her face flushed with excitement, became the youngest CEO today. And in a little while, she's going to sign a 10-year contract with Summit Holdings, the biggest conglomerate in the city. She grabbed Evelyn's hand, practically bouncing with joy. Evelyn, this is amazing. You're the youngest CEO, you've landed a decade-long deal with Summit, and you've finally ditched this deadweight. It's a trifecta. We have to celebrate. A smile graced Evelyn's lips, with no trace of sadness or nostalgia about the divorce. And why should she be sad? I wasn't, especially when I heard the name of that biggest conglomerate, Summit Holdings. I almost laughed out loud. If only they knew. The chairman of Summit Holdings was nothing more than a servant of the White family. I was tempted to tell them, just to see the looks on their faces. But why bother? They probably wouldn't believe me anyway. My heart was dead. Evelyn was a stranger. Why waste another breath on her? I stood up, took off my apron without a word, and turned to leave. This apartment was in Evelyn's name. It didn't matter that she had bought it with the profits from a deal I had arranged for her. I couldn't be bothered with such trivial details anymore. I would walk away with nothing, just as they wished, and never have anything to do with Evelyn Shaw again. But just as I reached the door, she called out, "Wait, you forgot this. The $1 million. Without turning back, I replied in a voice as devoid of emotion as hers. Keep it. Get to a panhandler. The moment the door clicked shut behind me, I heard Megan's shrill voice erupt from inside. Hey, that useless freeloader. $1 million isn't good enough for him. Good riddance. Evelyn, congratulations on finally getting rid of that leech and regaining your freedom. Freedom? The word made me want to laugh. I wondered which one of us was truly free now. Though I was gone, I could easily picture the scene inside. They must be ecstatic. I just never imagined that right after I left, they would do something so incredibly stupid. As the elevator descended, I realized that this wasn't the first time I'd left this apartment. But every other time, it had been a plan of surprise for Evelyn, or to go grocery shopping to cook her favorite meal. Never before had it felt so liberating. Standing on the sidewalk below the high-rise, even the city air felt sweeter. I had only taken a few steps when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, a little surprised by the caller ID, but answered. A deep, resonant voice came through the line. Young master, is that you? Hearing the voice, I sighed. You called me. Who do you think it is? To my surprise, the voice on the other end cracked with emotion. Young master, it's been 3 years. I haven't heard your voice in 3 years, he choked out. Sir, I've missed you. I missed you so much. Listening to a grown man sob like that made me uncomfortable. All right, that's enough, I said sharply. Stop crying. Let's talk business. My impatient tone immediately straightened him out. Yes, sir. You're divorced. The question stopped me in my tracks. I instinctively glanced back up at Evelyn's apartment window before replying. I just found out myself. How did you know already? Are you having me followed? Sir, I would never dare, the voice said panicked. He rushed to explain. It was the young miss. It was Evelyn Shaw's company, Emberlight Dynamics. They issued a press release. It announced that Ms. Shaw has officially divorced you and is now single. The news was so absurd it was almost funny. I looked up at her window and shook my head. Evelyn, you really couldn't wait to broadcast it to the world, could you? Honestly, I never thought she could be this foolish. Was this Megan's idea? Did she really have no idea where all the resources for her company were coming from? I had a clear picture now of their intelligence level. No wonder that in 3 years, she never suspected a thing about my identity. She never once stopped to think how a man who never touched our finances or asked her for a dime could afford to give her such extravagant gifts for every birthday and anniversary. Did she think I was panhandling on the street? But none of that mattered now. That's right. I said into the phone, my voice firm. I'm divorced. Wonderful. The sheer joy in his voice surpassed even Megan's from earlier. Sir, wait right there. Give me 5 minutes. I'm coming to get you. Come get me for what? I asked, a hint of curiosity in my voice. I walked out with nothing but the clothes on my back. The voice on the other end didn't hesitate for a second. Sir, don't say that. Now that you're free, I can finally return Summit Holdings to you. That's right. Summit Holdings. The most powerful conglomerate in the city. The one Megan had just been gloating about. The very same Summit Holdings that was about to sign a 10-year contract with Evelyn. And the man on the phone? He was the man the world knew as Arthur Hill, the chairman of Summit Holdings. His real identity, however, was a servant of my family, a steward. I had just stepped out of the condominium gates when a two-tone silver and black Maybach screeched to a halt in front of me. A man with a fawning expression scrambled out of the driver's side. It was Arthur Hill. He stumbled as he ran toward me. When he reached me, he dropped to his knees, grabbed my legs, and began to wail. "Young master, finally, after 3 years, I can finally see you again, my young master." His sudden, dramatic display left me completely stunned. As a crowd of onlookers started to gather, their stares growing more and more judgmental, I finally spoke, my voice sharp with annoyance. "All right, get up. What's with all the crying? Anyone would think I was dead." Arthur was instantly obedient. He did exactly as I said, scrambling to his feet and bowing as he opened the rear door of the Maybach for me. Then, he scurried around to the driver's side, taking on the role of my chauffeur. The chairman of Summit Holdings, now acting as my driver. I couldn't help but think how priceless the expressions on Evelyn and Megan's faces would be if they could see this. But none of it mattered to me anymore. Soon, Arthur had driven me to Summit Tower, the tallest skyscraper in the city's central business district. We took the private elevator, reserved exclusively for the chairman, straight to his office on the top floor. He bustled about, pouring me tea and serving me water, standing by my side with a deferential, almost giddy expression. I felt a strange sense of dislocation. It had been 3 years. 3 years since anyone had waited on me with such meticulous care. For the last 3 years, I had been the one taking care of Evelyn. As I looked at the teacup in my hand, I suddenly realized it had been a long, long time since I'd felt what it was like to be a young master. Just then, there was a soft knock on the office door. Arthur immediately straightened up and called out, "Come in." A woman I didn't recognize, presumably Arthur's executive assistant, walked in. She seemed surprised to see me in the office, but her professionalism kept her from saying anything. She addressed Arthur directly. "Mr. Hill, a representative from Emberlight Dynamics, just called. Ms. Shaw would like to know what time we can proceed with the contract signing this afternoon." "Emberlight Dynamics?" "Ms. Shaw." "So, Evelyn." Arthur didn't answer his assistant. Instead, he turned his questioning gaze to me. Seeing his look, I gave a wry smile. "You're the chairman of Summit Holdings. Why are you looking at me?" My words seemed to give him the confirmation he needed. He turned back to his assistant and issued a swift, decisive command. "Immediately halt the contract that was prepared for Emberlight Dynamics. Then, issue a public statement from Summit announcing that effective immediately, we are severing all ties with Emberlight Dynamics. From this day forward, there will be no possibility of any future collaborations." The assistant's body trembled. "What?" Arthur's decision surprised even me. I hadn't expected him to be so ruthless in his display of loyalty. What would I have done in his shoes? I wasn't sure, but now I chose to say nothing. Whatever decision Arthur made, it was his to make. Besides, what did Evelyn have to do with me anymore? The assistant, however, was completely baffled by her boss's sudden reversal. They had just finalized the terms of the partnership that morning. How could everything have changed so drastically in just a few hours? "Mr. Hill," she began, her voice hesitant. Why the sudden change of heart?" "Ms. Shaw is the hottest rising star in the business world right now. Sir, you must reconsider." Her questioning was a clear overstep, and Arthur's expression hardened. Still, he offered a curt explanation. "Didn't you see the press release Emberlight Dynamics put out earlier today?" "Of course I did," the assistant replied, as if it were obvious. "Evelyn Shaw got divorced. This is fantastic news." "What did you say?" The assistant's words made Arthur's brow furrow in anger. Even I flinched, my fingers tightening around my teacup as I looked up at her. She, however, remained oblivious to the dangerous territory she was treading. "Everyone knows that Ms. Shaw's husband of 3 years, that Cole White guy, was a complete nobody. Just a freeloader, a kept man living off her success. He was dead weight, holding her back. For her to finally wise up and dump him, it just proves that Ms. Shaw is ready to..." Smack! Arthur's hand cracked across her face, the sharp sound cutting her off mid-sentence. He looked appalled that such words could come from his own assistant. "Security," he roared. 4 or 5 guards immediately rushed into the office. With a merciless wave of his hand, Arthur commanded, "Drag this insolent woman out of here, and make sure she never sets foot in Summit Tower again." "Mr. Hill." The woman looked as if she couldn't believe her ears. She couldn't understand. All she had done was state a widely accepted fact. How had it come to this? Banned from Summit Tower? She was the chairman's executive assistant. In this city, she was practically second only to him in the corporate world. How could her life be upended in an instant? "Mr. Hill." I'm sorry I was wrong. Please forgive me, I beg you. Her pleas faded as she was dragged away. For some reason, a fresh wave of pain pricked at my heart. Not for her, but for the words she had said. For 3 years, I had hidden my identity to spare Evelyn the pressure. I was the one who didn't want people to look down on her for being with someone so far beneath her station. How, in the end, had I become the one universally acknowledged as the pathetic, freeloading husband? I thought of everything I had done for Evelyn over the past 3 years. It was all a joke. A dull thud broke my train of thought. It was the sound of Arthur dropping to his knees in front of me. I'm sorry, young Master White. I am so terribly sorry, he said, his voice thick with remorse. You have been living in anonymity for so long. It was my failure to properly manage my staff that allowed this insolent dog to offend you. I promise, I will handle her cleanly. No one will ever sully your ears or dirty your eyes again. Listening to his apology, watching him kneel before me, a long-forgotten feeling from 3 years ago began to stir within me. I set down my teacup, stood up, and walked over to him. I didn't help him up. I simply looked down at his kneeling form and spoke slowly, my voice quiet but firm. Yes, it has been a long time. So long that the world has forgotten what it feels like to kneel at my feet. As I watched, Arthur personally shredded the contract that was meant for Evelyn. Then, under his authority as chairman, he released the official statement. Effective immediately, Summit Holdings will sever all ties with Emberlight Dynamics. All future collaborations are hereby terminated. I stood by and said nothing. As I said before, he was the chairman of Summit Holdings. And besides, Evelyn Shaw had nothing to do with me anymore. A wry thought crossed my mind. Evelyn, when you see this news, you're going to be very, very surprised, aren't you? Surprised was an understatement. Their reaction exceeded even my expectations. Back in Evelyn's penthouse, her face was ghost white, her breathing shallow and rapid. Beside her, Megan paced back and forth like a caged animal. What is going on? What the hell is going on? Megan muttered, staring at her phone. The phone rang incessantly. Evelyn looked completely drained, her body slumping into the sofa. She turned to Megan. How many calls? Is that now? Megan's face was a mask of panic. Over a dozen. They're all from our investors. They want to know what happened. Some of them are furious, threatening to pull their funding. But we don't know what happened either. She ran a hand through her hair, her voice rising in hysteria. I posted the announcement about your divorce not 10 minutes ago, and then Summit drops a bombshell like this. What does it mean? Hearing Megan's frantic words, Evelyn's eyes widened in dawning horror. Could it? She whispered. Could this have something to do with Cole? I had to give her credit. Even now, she could still think of me. Impossible. Megan shot down the idea immediately. He's a freeloader, a man who hides behind a woman, who does nothing but laundry and cooking. What connection could he possibly have to Summit Holdings? What a wonderfully loyal best friend Evelyn had. Evelyn said nothing more, but the look in her eyes told me she accepted Megan's logic. But her voice was weary. What do we do now? Indeed, this was about the entire future of their company. This deal was supposed to elevate Emberlight Dynamics to the next level. Instead, Summit had just blacklisted them. What could they do? Suddenly, an idea seemed to strike Megan. Her eyes lit up. Evelyn, do you remember? Julian Vance has tried to get in touch with you several times. At the mention of the name, Evelyn's expression shifted. Julian Vance? You mean the Julian Vance? Yes, Megan said, grabbing onto the idea like a lifeline. He's a major shareholder in Vanguard Enterprises, the second largest firm in the city. And his sister is your idol, the one and only Claire Vance. Megan's voice grew more animated. And Julian has always had a huge crush on you. I've always said you two were the perfect match. What was that Cole White compared to him? Nothing. And now you're divorced. This is the perfect opportunity to start a partnership with Vanguard. Evelyn was swayed. A glimmer of hope, of ambition, returned to her eyes. She whispered the name of her idol like a prayer. Claire Vance. I was still unaware of the drama unfolding in Evelyn's penthouse, but as it happened, Arthur had just brought up the very same name. Seeing me sitting there in silence, he spoke tentatively. Young master, I don't suppose you remember Ms. Claire Vance, the chairwoman of Vanguard Enterprises. Claire. The name conjured a vivid image in my mind, a woman of stunning beauty, even more striking than my memory of Evelyn, with an added layer of cool elegance. And her smile, a rare sight for the world, was one she had shown freely to me. Of course I remember Claire Vance. Unfortunately, when I met her, I had already made a lifelong commitment to Evelyn. A commitment that now felt like a bitter joke. How is she? I asked Arthur. Not well, sir. Arthur replied, his tone heavy with an almost personal sorrow. 3 years ago, when you decided to renounce your name and marry that woman, Ms. Vance made a public declaration. She would never marry. She threw herself entirely into her work. Today, Vanguard Enterprises is second only to our Summit Holdings. She did it all for you, young master. Arthur's voice took on a slightly teasing quality. I believe this is what the young people today call being someone's one that got away. Sir, you are Claire Vance's one that got away. I couldn't help it. I choked on my tea, spraying a mouthful all over Arthur's face. He just smiled sheepishly, wiping his face. A blessing, sir, a blessing from heaven. You're unbelievable, I muttered, shaking my head. How can you even say something like that with a straight face? But in the end, with Arthur's encouragement, I found myself dialing Claire's number, my heart fluttering with a nervous energy I hadn't felt in years. Hearing her voice again was like rain after a long drought. Even Arthur couldn't help but comment. It's been 3 years, and I've met with Ms. Vance many times. I can't remember the last time I heard her sound so happy. Happy? A strange thought occurred to me. I had just gotten divorced, and it seemed like nobody in the world was sad for me. The people on Evelyn's side were happy for her, and the people on my side were happy for me. Maybe my marriage to Evelyn was a mistake from the very beginning. But what was the point of thinking about that now? On the phone, I accepted Claire's enthusiastic invitation. Tonight, I would go to the 5-star hotel owned by Vanguard Enterprises to meet this old friend I hadn't seen in so long. The appointed time arrived quickly. Arthur personally drove me to the Stratosphere Hotel, a flagship property of Vanguard Enterprises. For some reason, as I was about to meet the powerful female CEO who supposedly saw me as her one that got away, my heart began to pound with nervousness. I took several deep breaths before walking into the opulent lobby. Standing in the elevator that would take me to the top floor, I was still trying to think of an opening line. Suddenly, a slender, pale hand shot out, blocking the closing doors. The next second, my eyes met the owner of that hand, and we both froze. "What are you doing here?" we exclaimed in unison. Evelyn and I stood there, staring at each other through the gap in the elevator doors. It felt just like the first time we met, me on one side of an elevator, her on the other. But the feeling was entirely different. Megan's shrill voice shattered the moment. "Cole, are you kidding me? You're everywhere. Like a bad smell, you just won't go away." Every trace of expression vanished from my face. Her tirade continued. "Admit it. You can't accept a divorce, so you're stalking Evelyn, aren't you? You're not just a freeloader, you're a perverted stalker. I'm warning you, back off before I call the cops." A cold smile touched my lips. "Ma'am, you might want to get your facts straight. I was here first. If anyone is stalking anyone, it would be you stalking me. You piece of—" While Evelyn remained silent, Megan chirped away like an infuriating sparrow. "We'd stalk you? We can't wait to get away from you. Tonight, our Evelyn is here on a date." A date? The word was clearly meant to sting me, to make me jealous or miserable. Unfortunately for them, it caused not a single ripple in the calm of my heart. "So am I," I said flatly. "You?" Megan scoffed. "With what? In what universe do you belong on a date at the Stratosphere Hotel? That's hilarious." Just then, Megan seemed to spot something and tugged on Evelyn's arm. "Evelyn, let's not waste our breath on him. We can take the next one." From the beginning, after our initial locked gaze, Evelyn hadn't looked at me again. I was clearly already a stranger in her eyes. I never imagined, however, that when my elevator reached the top floor and the doors opened, the first people I would see would be Evelyn and Megan. It was as if Megan had caught me red-handed. "You still deny you're stalking her?" she shrieked, pointing a finger at me. "How do you explain this, you creep?" "Explain? Why would I explain anything to you?" The meeting place Claire and I had agreed upon was here, on the top floor of the Stratosphere, in a private suite called the Apex. I had no desire to engage with Megan's hysterics. To my surprise, Evelyn, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Her voice was as cold and distant as a mountaintop. "Cole, as your ex-wife, I feel I have a responsibility to remind you to know your place." I almost laughed. "You have the right to remind me of my place, Evelyn?" But she wasn't finished. "We're over," she continued, her tone glacial. "And I'm telling you this for your own good. I never loved you. I made it perfectly clear this morning. You're just a tool I used to get my family off my back. The kind of man who deserves to be with me is a titan of industry. That's not you. Do you understand what I'm saying? Give it up, Cole. I'm not coming back to you." Well, had I ever asked her to come back? And where did she get this incredible confidence from? I didn't remember her being this arrogant when we were married. Just as I was about to set her straight, a man's voice cut in from the side. "Evelyn, what's going on? Is someone bothering you?" So this was her titan of industry. Julian Vance. The young Master Vance they had been talking about, and the younger brother of the woman I was here to meet, Claire. I could see a faint resemblance to Claire in his features, but his smug, arrogant expression made it seem like they weren't related at all. The moment Megan saw him, her abrasive demeanor vanished. She put on a simpering, high-pitched voice. Mr. Vance, it's only been a few days, but you seem to have gotten even more handsome. Even Evelyn offered him a small, polite smile. Julian, it's been a while. Watching the smile on Evelyn's face, I felt a strange sense of irony, and even a pang of pity for this Julian Vance. I wasn't sure why, but since their attention had shifted, I had no interest in tangling with them further. I spotted a sign near the elevator and followed the arrow pointing toward the Apex suite. As I walked away, I heard Evelyn's voice behind me again. It's nothing, Julian. Just somewhat irrelevant. Irrelevant. Even though my heart was numb to her, those words still made me pause for a half-second. I watched as she walked past me, a faint smile playing on her lips. Julian Vance shot me a contemptuous look as he passed. Some people just can't accept their station in life, he sneered, his voice loud enough for me to hear. But I have my own way of dealing with flies like this. You just swat them. Their shared laughter echoed down the hall. Little did they know, I was laughing harder on the inside. Swat me? Have you asked your sister for permission? The three of them walked ahead, and I followed a short distance behind. Not because I was a stalker, but because the Apex suite was in the same direction. Soon I saw it, a grand, gilded doorway, softly illuminated. But they saw it too. A confused look crossed Julian's face. My sister never lets anyone use this suite, he muttered to himself. What's going on today? Megan, who either didn't hear him or didn't care, was practically vibrating with excitement. I've heard that the most luxurious suite in the stratosphere is the Apex, a room no one ever gets to see. I can't believe you opened it just for us, Mr. Vance. She turned to Evelyn. See, Evelyn, Mr. Vance is serious about you. Not like some people who only know how to make greasy short ribs at home. Who even likes that stuff? Evelyn, whether she was being genuine or not, said to Julian, Thank you, Julian. Ha ha. Anything for you, Evelyn, he boomed, though I could see the troubled look he was trying to hide. Come on. I was a little surprised he was actually leading them toward the suite. Wasn't this where Claire and I were supposed to meet? Puzzled, I followed them, stepping through the gilded doorway into the magnificent room. The moment we were inside, all four of us froze. A second later, Evelyn spun around, her eyes blazing with fury. Cole, what is the meaning of this? Take your pictures down right now. Do you have any idea how much you'll have to pay if you damage this suite? My pictures, she was right. All over the massive suite, on the walls, the ceiling, even the windows were photos of me. Me working at a desk, me driving, me sleeping, but not a single wedding photo. Her angry words barely registered. I was too stunned. I didn't know why Claire had insisted on meeting in this particular suite, a room Julian said she never allowed anyone to use. So this was why. Now, I was beginning to understand why Arthur had used the phrase, the one that got away, to describe my place in Claire's heart. I had just gotten divorced, and in this room, I was seeing what true devotion looked like. Cole, Evelyn is talking to you. Are you deaf? Megan's shriek pulled me from my reverie. Both she and Evelyn were glaring at me, but it was Megan who pointed a trembling finger in my face. Cole White, you're the most shameless, pathetic creep I have ever met. How did you find out Evelyn was coming here tonight? You snuck in here beforehand and plastered your disgusting pictures everywhere, trying to win her back, didn't you? This is Vanguard property. You have no idea the trouble you're in. Evelyn turned to Julian, her voice apologetic. Julian, I am so sorry. I had no idea Cole would do something so disgusting. I'll pay for all the damages. I'll make him take every single one of these down right now. She whirled back to me. What are you waiting for? Didn't you hear me? Seeing their hysterical rage, I felt a strange sense of calm. I spread my hands. What makes you so sure I'm the one who put these up? Who else would do something so sick? Megan screeched. Julian finally turned his full attention to me, his face contorted in a mask of fury. You've got a lot of nerve, pal. Do you know where you are? Do you know what this suite means to my sister? You snuck in here and defiled it with this crap. If I don't teach you a lesson today, I'll have failed Evelyn, and I'll have failed the stratosphere. Security, he bellowed. I want this bastard beaten to a pulp. But as his voice echoed through the suite, it wasn't security that responded. It was a clear, cold voice that cut through the tension like ice. Julian, you will do no such thing. Claire had arrived. She wore a pale evening gown that shimmered under the soft lights, and around her slender neck was the same delicate necklace she had worn the first time we met. The sharp, rhythmic click of her high heels on the marble floor sounded like a drumbeat, each step echoing straight into my heart. As she entered, her beautiful eyes were fixed on me, and only me. It was as if no one else in the room existed. Not her brother, and certainly not Evelyn or Megan. Her presence completely eclipsed Evelyn's. Even I found myself captivated, my gaze locked on the face I hadn't seen in 3 years. I could see her eyes were red-rimmed, glistening with unshed tears. But she held herself with impeccable grace, stopping right in front of me, standing so close we were almost touching. We just stood there, looking at each other in silence. Julian, who had been cowed by his sister's sharp command, seemed to shrink in on himself. It was a deep-seated fear, the kind a younger brother has for a formidable older sister. He didn't dare say a word. But Megan and Evelyn's eyes were wide with excitement. Megan bounced on her heels, grabbing Evelyn's arm. "Evelyn, look, it's her. It's Claire Vance, the most successful woman in the city. Your idol," she squealed. "I can't believe we're actually meeting her today." Evelyn, too, was struggling to contain her excitement, her hands trembling slightly. She composed herself and addressed Claire. "Ms. Vance, I am so sorry. My ex-husband has caused you a great deal of trouble. I promise I will make him pay for this." Evelyn's words seemed to snap Julian out of his stupor. He quickly added, "Sis, look what he's done to your suite. You have to call security. Don't let him get away with this." But Claire seemed to hear none of it. Not Megan, not Evelyn, not her own brother. She just stood before me, tilting her head up slightly to look into my eyes. As the seconds ticked by, her eyes grew redder. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. Finally, she spoke for the second time, her voice soft and fragile. "May I hug you?" Megan, Evelyn, and Julian froze, their jaws slack. I didn't pay them any mind. I just looked into Claire's eyes and slowly nodded. A single tear traced a path down her perfect cheek. She closed her eyes, opened her arms, and buried her face in my chest, holding me tight. I closed my eyes, too, savoring the moment of quiet connection. I was oblivious to the stunned, disbelieving expressions on the faces of the other 3 people in the room. Julian was the first to break the silence. "Sis, what are you doing?" Claire pulled away from my embrace. She turned to Julian and strode toward him. "Sis, you..." Smack! Before Julian could finish his sentence, Claire's hand struck his face. He was clearly stunned. "Sis, what are you doing?" Smack! Another sharp crack echoed in the room. Claire showed no mercy. She then issued a cold, simple command. "Kneel and apologize." "For what?" Smack! A third slap. "Kneel." "No." Smack! A fourth. As Claire raised her hand again, a soft thud sounded. Julian, his face already swelling, dropped to his knees in front of me. But Claire didn't tell him to apologize. Instead, she turned to face Evelyn, who was now standing there, completely lost. As for Megan, Claire didn't even grant her a glance. Claire spoke to Evelyn, her voice flat and devoid of warmth. "So, you're the one. The youngest CEO. The one they say is poised to become the next me." Finally face to face with her idol. Despite the bizarre circumstances, Evelyn managed a weak smile at the mention of her proudest title. "Ms. Vance, you're too kind." Kind." Claire's voice was laced with scorn, cutting Evelyn off. She looked at Evelyn as if she were a pathetic clown. "You're not worthy." "What?" Evelyn's face went pale, and she stumbled back a step. I knew she had fantasized about this moment, about what she would say to her idol. But in all her dreams, the words, "you're not worthy," were surely never part of the script. Her ego must have taken a devastating blow. But Claire was just getting started. "On what grounds did your tiny, brand-new company land a multi-million-dollar contract right out of the gate?" she pressed, her voice sharp. "When your company was on the verge of collapse, who do you think orchestrated the bailout? And you think you became the city's youngest CEO in 3 years on your own merit? You honestly believe you had the clout to get a 10-year contract offer from Summit Holdings?" Claire paused, glanced at me, and then delivered the final, crushing blows. "If Cole wasn't secretly helping you, if Cole wasn't directing his own family's companies to support you, without Cole, were you? You are nothing." Each question was like a slap across Evelyn's face. She was completely dumbfounded. "Ms. Vance, what are you talking about? My success has nothing to do with Cole. He's just a stay-at-home husband." Evelyn, of course, couldn't accept it. But Claire had no intention of explaining further. She turned and walked to where her brother was kneeling, looking down at him. "You were wondering why I made you kneel, weren't you?" Julian didn't respond, but his silence was answer enough. Claire looked at me first. In that instant, all the coldness, the imperious distance vanished. A faint, girlish blush colored her cheeks. "Cole, may I?" she asked, her voice sweet and gentle. Even Julian looked up, stunned, as if he couldn't believe this was his sister. The sound of her voice sent a tremor through me. How long had it been since someone had spoken my name with such tenderness? I looked at her and nodded my assent. Claire then turned her gaze back to the others, her voice ringing out, clear and undeniable for all to hear. The man standing before you is Cole White, the sole heir to the White family, the only true financial dynasty in this part of the country. He is the majority shareholder and true owner of Summit Holdings. Forget you and me. Even our fathers would have to bow to him and respectfully address him as Mr. White. What? The exclamation came from Julian, Evelyn, and Megan in shocked unison. Julian was the first to recover. He scrambled forward on his knees. Mr. White, I'm so sorry. I was blind. I had no idea who you were. I deserve to die. I'm so sorry. He began slapping his own face over and over. Watching him, a wave of nostalgia washed over me. Now, finally, they remembered what it felt like to kneel at my feet. Claire spoke again. Now do you understand who needs to be thrown out of here? Julian's eyes widened in comprehension. Yes, sis. I understand. Leave it to me. He scrambled up and ran out of the suite, shouting security. Get security up here right now. Throw those two wannabe parasites out of my hotel. I watched as the strength left Evelyn and Megan's bodies. They crumpled to the floor in front of me. My heart felt nothing. Mr. White! Megan suddenly shrieked, crawling forward and slapping her own face just as Julian had done. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please forgive me, Mr. White. The slapping sounds were relentless, her cheeks quickly turning red and swollen. Seeing her best friend's pathetic display, Evelyn slowly seemed to grasp the reality of the situation. She turned to me, tears streaming down her face. Cole, can we get back together? Please? I love you. I've always loved you. I didn't know any of it. If I had known how much you loved me, I never would have divorced you. I swear I wouldn't have. Cole, I love you. I still love you. Watching her sob, I smiled. A smile completely devoid of emotion. Love? So, to her, love meant I had money, that I could give her business opportunities, that I could secure a massive contract with Summit Holdings. Is that what love was? But the man who cooked for her, washed her feet every night, and made her soup when she was sick. In her eyes, he was just a pathetic freeloader. Struggling and pleading, Megan and Evelyn were dragged out by hotel security. I never looked at Evelyn again. I knew that from this day forward. She was just a person I used to know. Julian discreetly closed the suite doors, leaving me alone with Claire, who was now resting her head against my chest. She gently traced the back of my hand with her finger and gestured to the countless photos around us. I put them all up myself, she whispered. Do you like them? Hearing the warmth in her voice, I smiled and teased. It's a little intense. A soft laugh escaped her lips. She looked up into my eyes, her own shining, and said, each word full of meaning, then, how about we replace them with our wedding photos?